my coughing's still not gonna.
Great intro. That's great. Keep that. Use that take.
I will. Promise.
Okay, hello and welcome to the Score Attack podcast. My name is Mirrug, and with me tonight is Johnny. Hi, Johnny.
Hello, Mirrug.
And special guest star Ben. Hello.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm alive. I have all of my arms and legs and faculties. Not to disparage anyone who may be lacking in limbs, but I've got all mine, and I had them when I woke up this morning, and I still have them now. So I consider that to be I'm maintaining the status quo. I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Hopefully you'll still have them by the end of the podcast. Nothing will happen in the meantime.
That would be nice.
I actually grew an extra limb today. I'm not sure what that's about.
Like John.
Have you been splashing around in puddles of radioactive waste at all? I mean, what? Why? What are you gonna? What limb is it? Is it an arm? Is it a foot? What is it?
I'm not really sure. It's sticking out of my shoulder here. It's
okay.
No.
Johnny, stop giving people fan fiction material, please.
No. I'm gonna give them all the fan. No. Okay.
Oh well. Okay, Ben. Why don't you actually increase the class level of this podcast and actually tell us what you do and how you're more professional than we are?
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm more professional, but I do have a nicer haircut. So my name is Ben Patton. It's true.
I haven't cut my hair in half a year.
I can tell. I can absolutely tell. So yeah, my name is Ben Patton. I do a podcast, not podcast. You guys do a podcast. I do a web series called Portscenter, which looks at interesting and unique ports, conversions, and re-releases of old video games. And I say we, like there's more than one of me. We are just starting our third season. And we recently moved to the Chainsaw Suit YouTube channel, which is Chris Straub of Brood Hollow and Chainsaw Suit, and Mikey Newman, who is the creative director at Gearbox Software. They very graciously invited me to bring my show to their network, and that's what I've been doing. I've been making the show for them, and I have a lot of fun with it. It's got I try to be informative and entertaining at the same time in equal measure. So I don't always hit that mark, but that's always what I'm aiming for. And I'm British. Which means that we're all European friends here, even though I'm in America. Let's not dwell on my mistakes. Let's just be friends forever.
Well, since I'm Serbian, I'm either a friend or an enemy, depending on the decade.
Also, it depends on whether or not the Eurovision Song Contest is happening at that particular moment.
Oh God, please don't.
Let's all just bury it. Let's never mention the Eurovision Song Contest on the internet because it might spread. Don't let the Americans know.
The two worst things about Serbia is tennis and Eurovision, because whenever there are those two events happening, we never hear the end of it.
Something to look forward to as a Serbian.
Yeah.
They should combine the two, like you have to sing and play tennis at the same time.
I'd watch that.
That sounds like an anime premise or something.
I'm pretty confident that they're animating the second season of that show right now.
Probably just like to compete with Attack on Titan or whatever's current at the moment.
God damn it! Let's not talk about that.
But yeah, I've been actually watching Portscenter since the pilot started, which was the Doom one.
Nice,
yeah, it's been actually super informative because nobody does that. I do like that. Like there are like multiple shows that like specialize in this kind of niche. Like you specialize in ports, and there's another channel. I don't know if you saw it, that specializes in game glitches.
Yes. There's a few of those, yeah.
Yeah, there's like Son of a Glitch, I think the show is called, and they just do glitches completely. And it's like, it's really odd because when Johnny and I were trying to do this channel, we decided like, oh, let's try and not do a niche and just do whatever so we have excuses, but apparently that's not the recipe for success.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily say that doing something niche is a recipe for success either. I mean, I've been doing Portscenter now for, not including the pilot, we started in 2012, 2013. So that's 2 years I've been doing the show, and I've done, in that time, 50 episodes if you include the pilot. And some of the episodes, like 2 or 3 of the episodes have broken like 10,000, 15,000 views. I think a couple have cracked 20,000. But on average, an episode of Portscenter tends to get about, like between 5,000 to 9,000 views, which is great. I mean, I'm just happy that anyone is watching the show, and I don't my philosophy is not to make the show so much for other people, but to make it for myself. Like this is the kind of show that I've always wanted to see, and because it doesn't exist, that's why I decided to make it. But when you do make something that, if you consider gaming to be a niche hobby, video game ports are a niche aspect of a niche hobby. So that's niche twice. That is niche squared. So it's difficult. It can be difficult to build an audience with that. Thankfully, people seem to find my particular personality entertaining. So that seems to draw people in, and suddenly people are interested in what I have to say and why I'm saying it. Even if, it could be anything as diverse from, like, Luigi's separate sprite set in the Super Mario All-Stars version of Mario World, or, weird knockoffs of games that my mum used to play when I was a kid. Those are the topics that interest me. So that's the stuff that I like to talk about, and if other people have any interest in that, then I consider that to be a bonus.
So here's a question. What are you going to do when you run out of ports? Because right now, recent ports are all extremely boring.
Yeah, it's difficult because the way that games are developed now very much with a view to releasing them on multiple platforms. So rather than have, okay, this team's working on the Genesis version, this team's working on the Super Nintendo version, this team's working on the Game Boy version, now more than ever you have, okay, so the game is working on one build for development hardware, and then you maybe have a handful of people working on specializing those ports for other systems, but everything's developed with the mindset of this is going to get re-released on another system eventually. So, yeah, modern video game porting isn't glamorous, it isn't fun, there isn't really a lot to talk about there, but there is so much to talk about in stuff from the 80s and the 90s where a game would come out in the arcade and then they'd have one guy do a port for the Amiga version. Like the Amiga version of Smash TV, they didn't give him any of the assets. They literally just said, recreate this game, here's an arcade cabinet, play it to death, and then make it on the Amiga. And, this guy had to rebuild the game design, the movement, the input, the graphics, the sound effects, all of that stuff. He had to do that all by himself without any additional assets. Like, I can't even imagine something like that happening today because everything's so rigorous and structured. But I think because of the way that the games industry was much more loose and kind of anarchic, if that's the word I'm looking for, unless it's not, in which case, imagine I said a different word. It was much more kind of chaotic and loose in the 80s and 90s than it is now. And we still get that a little bit with mobile phone development, but it's less that no one cares about that. Because no one cares about the Android port of Angry Birds. There's no interest.
Well, maybe not a huge interest. I have some interest, but mostly because they all are bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a special kind of joy as well and we don't get this so much with video games. In movies, if a movie is so bad it's good, people will, like Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Riff Tracks have made a business out of making fun of awful, awful movies, and we don't really have that for video games. If a video game is bad, people just don't play it. And I think that I personally would like to, and this is way off topic, but I would love to see.
We never stay on topic here.
Good. I'm gonna love this podcast. I would love to see I would love to see like Riff Tracks and MST3K style commentaries and discussion of games that are just so bad that they become good. And I know that these games exist. People are starting to talk about them. Things like Home Improvement on the Super Nintendo, Snapperazzi on the Amiga. There's a whole subcategory of games that are so bad that they become enjoyable through their badness, and I can't wait to see people starting to kind of really tackle that side of gaming in the way that we're getting, the way that we currently get with movies through Riff Tracks.
Yeah, I've seen like some stuff like that already. Like, I see some Twitch streams occasionally doing things like Fahrenheit, which was a reasonably popular game when it came out, but looking bad at it, it's just awful in so many ways, and people will just play through it. Often people who haven't seen it before just play through it and commentate over it, and that can be great fun.
Well, the closest you have to that is like Retro Prey, where they like take these god-awful old point-and-click or survival horror games and just, also Mr. Science Theater style comment over them. They've dug out some PlayStation 1 survival horrors, which I think are like probably the worst type of games that you can find to riff on, like Galerians and Hard Edge or whatever it was.
As much as I love Resident Evil, the story in that game is preposterous.
Man, like we had a field day with Resident Evil Remake when we did it for the channel. It's just like the gift that keeps on giving.
It was amazing. That was some of the funniest shit I've ever seen. Not on purpose, of course. And honestly, the funniest parts are the parts where they try to fix the things where the original version was just even worse. And it still comes off super awkward, and it's even worse because they try to fix it and it's still bad.
Well, some stuff is just so bad that it can't be. I mean, I love the Resident Evil remake, and I love the original Resident Evil, and I love Resident Evil 2 and 3, and then I pretend that the rest of the franchise doesn't exist. But those first games, as ridiculous as they are, I have a real affection for them, and the remake is still to this day like one of my favourite GameCube games of all time. So
yeah, I mean, like I don't know how you can make a serious story with Barry as a character. He just ruins everything. I mean, in a good
almost
way.
A Jill sandwich. Like there's so it's the dialogue is so, and even in the remake when they changed it to a few more seconds, you would have fit nicely in a sandwich. Just like, okay, calm down, Sean Connery. Just enjoy the moment. Just let her be alive.
The best part is that they brought him back for the new Resident Evil Revelations.
Yeah.
Yeah, they brought him like in Revelations 2,
but then you get character like Wesker in Resident Evil he's just such a he's like Dick Dastardly. He's just there's no he's just bad for the sake of being bad at this point. There's just I don't believe his motivations as a character. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy the games, but Albert Wesker is the most preposterous villain in video games over the last 20 years, bar none, except possibly Kefka in Final Fantasy VI.
I mean, he is the evil version of Johnny Bravo, essentially.
Yeah, he does. He has a real sort of Bravo-esque. Like he doesn't have the Elvis part down, like the voices, because Albert Wesker's much more calm and collected, and whereas Johnny Bravo's like, and that you don't get. I would watch a remake of Resident Evil where you just replaced Albert Wesker with Johnny Bravo. I would be okay.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
I'm just like trying to think, and it wouldn't even interfere with the story or the plot.
It would be the exact same. It would be the same. It would be the same, except you'd probably have some scenes of Albert Wesker hitting on Jill Valentine. A lot.
He would be both Barry and Wesker in one.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love Resident Evil.
It's one of my favorites.
I'm just gonna put it out there. But like all those early survival horrors had awkward everything. I mean, like the first Silent Hill just revolves around Harry Mason saying, "Have you seen my daughter?" or "Have you seen a little girl?"
Which and I still think, I mean, on a psychological level, and this I realize this doesn't affect a lot of people who play video games, because a lot of people who play video games tend to skew younger, especially at the time when the game came out, but. If you're a parent playing the first Silent Hill game, I mean, that's just the psychology of, I've lost my child, I don't know where my child is, I'm terrified. Like, for survival horror, to kind of throw that into the mix, when you're a parent playing that game, is just, it gets you in the chest. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I have friends who are parents who I've spoken to about it on that level. Like, Silent Hill is for the first 3 Silent Hill games are, for my money, the most successful, most innovative, and most enjoyable survival horror experiences ever. But that added layer of where's my daughter if you have kids just elevates it, because you've got not only have you got this strange shifting world, you've got this element of my daughter is lost here somewhere. Imagine being a parent. And your kid, when you're a parent and you lose a kid in like a shopping mall, that's terrifying. When the shopping mall ends up having the walls bleed blood and then dogs with like mannequin legs chase after you, that's on a whole different level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a parent either. Obviously, you can just look at me, but
and you're never going to be.
I'm not planning to.
That was too mean, I'm sorry. But it's true.
Don't worry, it's okay, I do it all the time, it's fine.
I'm used to it. Everyone's like, oh, Jan is like the worst. Okay, that wasn't any good. Anyway, I can still observe like how parents behave, and just having seen enough parents around, like you can just know how horrifying that is just from having observed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the company I work at, we develop mostly hidden object games, and those are generally targeted at an older audience, like, for casual people. And the most common premise in those games, in general, are you've either lost a child somewhere, it's been kidnapped, or you've or your loved one is lost, or you lose someone. That's general gist of it, almost 90% of the plots.
Because that's something that terrifies. If you're younger, that's not a fear that you can really connect with, unless you've been a kid who has been lost. On that level, you can probably get it. But the idea of losing a child, a sibling, a niece or nephew, any kind of relative, the older you get, becomes a more palpable fear, especially as you get older and you start losing people. I'm going to turn 29 in April. And it's 2015, in case you're listening to this podcast in the future. I'm going to turn 29 in just a month. And I recently lost, in a very short space of time, both my mother and my father. And that's the first time I've ever had to deal with that kind of loss. I mean, that was 6 months ago, and I'm still kind of grappling with it. But, that kind of loss it's a very potent and powerful emotion. And it's not something that video games tend to pull from very often, because video games tend to, when you think of what is a mature video game, well, a mature video game is when you can stick your hand through a person's chest, pull out the spinal cord, and then beat them to death with it. No, for my money, a mature video game is a game that deals with mature themes like loss and grief and growing up. Games Journey is a key example of this. To a certain extent, Heavy Rain. Which same guy did Fahrenheit, deals with that to an extent. And I think that one of the reasons, I mean, Heavy Rain is not a perfect game by any stretch.
It tries.
It's trying so hard.
It tries.
And I think that one of the reasons why people lay into games like Heavy Rain so much is because it is at its core a mature game. It is a game that is about something. It's not just about big, angry, bold Space Marine is angry that someone shot a different angry, bold Space Marine, so let's shoot the people who shot your big, angry, dumb Space Marine friend because revenge is nice. No, it's about something. It's about emotion, and that's one of the things. This is the stupidest thing in the world, but for my money, one of the most emotive games that I've played in the last 10 years has actually been Super Mario Galaxy. And part of that has been because of Rosalina's story that she tells throughout the game. And I'm not going to lie, when I finished Super Mario Galaxy, I cried. And the last time I cried at any point during a game was Final Fantasy VI. And I think that shows both what a spectacular girl I am, and also what a weeaboo I can be as a person. So, I don't know. I have no idea, I think the games as a medium, as a storytelling medium, and we're way off base. I think we were talking about crackers or something 27 minutes ago.
Go on.
But I feel like games as a storytelling medium work best when they're trying to do their own thing, and when they're trying to tell actual stories. When we're not getting so much of the the basic black and white colors of things like Gears of War and Batman Arkham Asylum to an extent, the kind of comic book stuff. When you look at kind of the emotion behind stuff, kind of like the sort of stuff that BioWare used to do, like the early Dragon Age and Mass Effect stuff. And again, even though it's not perfect, I would still cite Heavy Rain, Silent Hill as well. I think particularly those first 3 games. When games are doing their own thing, but also when they're not trying to mimic the trappings of the film industry, which happens with cutscenes. You get the letterboxing, and there's that sound again. Perfect. You get the letterboxing coming in at the top and the bottom, and it becomes cinematic, and it's like, no, one of the best storytelling experiences in video games has been Half-Life and Half-Life 2, because it doesn't tell the story through cutscenes and by interrupting the gameplay. You never lose control, except for a bit at the beginning and a bit at the end during that game. Everything you learn about the game world, you learn through dialogue, you learn through conversations with other characters, you learn through overheard conversations that you've got the option of skipping if you want, and then things like newspaper clippings on the wall and posters and for want of a better term, set design, It's all there, and I love when video games do that, when video games try to tell stories in their own unique way that movies can't do. That's when they thrive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And especially in Half-Life, as you mentioned, I don't even think that the things they tell you directly are the best things, especially in the second game. It's not the cool part is not like when Alex Vance is like, oh no, the Combine are coming, we need to run away. The cool part is when you realize that as you're driving along the beach in this dune buggy, the reason that there's a bunch of ships just on the beach is that the Combine are draining the water from the planet.
Yeah. It's brilliant decisions like that. You can play. I've heard this. I've heard people who have played through Half-Life 2 from start to finish, and they've said, "Well, the plot didn't make any sense." Yeah, of course it didn't make any sense if you're just like running and gunning through the game. If you stop and like pay attention to your surroundings, and if you listen to things that characters on the other side of the room are saying, you learn everything that's happened in the time between the end of Half-Life 1 and the start of Half-Life 2, and why you're doing what you're doing. And I love that. Left 4 Dead has that as well. You know, Left 4 Dead doesn't really tell much of a story other than here are some survivors, here are some zombies, maybe you should not get killed by the zombies. But if you look at the level design and the set design in Left 4 Dead, there's a story there. There's a world there that has been ravaged by an infection. And again, stuff like newspaper clippings and like the spray paint and the marker pens on the walls in the safe rooms, all tell a story about how we got to that point and where we're going. And that's something that Valve does very, very well that few developers, other than Valve, do. They don't do it.
They do a lot of that environmental storytelling. Like in Half-Life 2 especially, one of the first scenes you see is when you have that disturbed couple sitting on the sofa and crying, and you kind of get the idea of how oppressed everyone is. Or when you're just going through random ruins, I think my favorite part is when you reach an area which is like, you see a chair, you see a bunch of textures from snack bags, and you see a bunch of grenades, and you can just picture that, okay, someone is camping here trying to survive, too afraid to go any further. And they do a lot of that. They do, on a global scale, like, that the Combine is running the water, but they also do these very little stories that are just like one-room stories.
Yeah. And you get a little bit of that in Left 4 Dead, where, in particular, in No Mercy, in the first campaign in the first Left 4 Dead, when you're in the subway, and there's this one bit that I always think of, and it's there's a white van and a table with ammunition, and then there's 2 bodies on the ground. They've been laid out very nicely, and they've got blankets covered over them. And someone was here. Some shit went down. They lost people who were important to them, and they took the time to stop and go, okay, we need to pay our respects. And that's again, it's one of those little one-room scenes. It's something that that happened in this world, and most people will just run past that, and they'll maybe grab the ammo, and if there's a weapon on the table, grab that, but they won't pay attention to the world building. And this is one of the things I'm really passionate about, is that video games have so much potential to tell stories in new and brilliant ways. Like, I still love Monkey Island, and all the old LucasArts adventure games like Sam & Max Hit the Road, Full Throttle. Those are the games that I grew up with, and the idea of not just like playing the story, because the story throughout those games is actually fairly linear, but you can do stuff out of order. The interactions you have with other characters affects how they interact with you. That stuff matters to me. I don't mind if the story is linear, so long as the way it's being told is entertaining. But I feel less entertained when I'm playing through a video game that's trying so hard to be a movie. Hideo Kojima wants to direct movies. You can see that in the cutscenes on Metal Gear Solid 4. Metal Gear Solid 4, I put the disc in after 8 minutes of installation time. It was an hour and a half before I had control over Solid Snake. I had to watch an egg frying on a frying pan for what felt like an eon before I had any control over Solid Snake. If you want to make a movie, but don't. This is an opportunity. This storytelling medium is is about 30 years old, and we haven't even begun to take full advantage. That's something that I care about.
Yeah, like I think Metal Gear Solid shouldn't have been a movie. It should have been an anime. Yeah, that's the medium for that.
Yeah, and you can see it in the way that the shots are framed and the pacing of it. It's like, it's very anime.
Yeah, I think that especially now it's a problem because budgets are so overinflated that all the mainstream games are just playing it safe and doing the boring stuff.
We need to be cinematic because Call of Duty was cinematic.
Yeah, and aside from a few exceptions like Spec Ops: The Line, most of better attempts at storytelling are now indie only, for most part.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. It's sad because I know that video games can be better than this, and it's just a case of when is that going to happen?
Well, I think it is happening. It's just not happening through the AAA space, and it's going to take some time for that to filter into the more mainstream developments. But you do see indies pushing the envelope in ways that AAA studios never could, just because the budgets are so prohibitive.
And AAA being AAA, when they see that something that an indie did is working, they'll just rip it off, and we'll have more of it.
This is true.
Like crafting in every game from Minecraft.
All of the Minecraft rip-offs. And now Microsoft owns Minecraft, so...
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be an interesting to see how that develops, whether Minecraft becomes like an Xbox. So I personally think Minecraft makes too much money for it to become an Xbox exclusive. I don't think... Because the key example I think of on this front is think about Lemmings. Lemmings was a behemoth in the 90s. It was on everything. It was on the PC, the Amiga, the Atari ST, the Acorn, the Game Boy, the NES, the Super NES, the Sega Genesis, the 3DO, the Jag, everywhere. If you wanted to play Lemmings on a thing, you could go out and find a copy of Lemmings. Now, Lemmings is Sony exclusive. Sony owns Lemmings as a brand. Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
The only Lemmings games we've had over the last few years were Lemmings for the PSP. We had a PS2 port of Lemmings. We had a PS3 digital-only sequel, and then there's Lemmings Touch for the PS Vita. That's fine, but if you'd released the Lemmings remake for digitally on the PC, if you'd released it for iPhones, if there were a Lemmings game for the iPad released today, Sony would make $1 billion guaranteed. But because they've trapped it on their own system, because they refuse to even entertain the notion that maybe Lemmings belongs to a larger audience, maybe they could make more money rather than trapping people on their system, they've locked themselves into a problem. And I hope Microsoft doesn't make the same mistake with Minecraft. I really, really hope.
They've already said that at least the current game Minecraft will never be locked away, or they will not focus on the Xbox version or anything. They will just try to give Mojang the support and the resources they need to get things done. Yeah. And we'll see how long that lasts, of course.
I give it 5 years. In 5 years' time, we'll get a true sequel to Minecraft that will just be for PC and Xbox.
But imagine also Microsoft now owns the generation below us, their Legos, basically.
Yeah. I was about to say that. They basically own the entire generation now.
And it's,
and it's scary.
Not great.
That's a really smart purchase of them. What can I say?
Well, I'll be honest, it was also smart of Notch to just sell it.
Oh, I mean...
all things considered.
Oh, I mean, based on what, in the statement he released, he never wanted it to get as big as it did. It was just, for him, Minecraft was just this fun experimental thing that he did in his spare time, and I don't think he ever expected it to get as big as it was.
No, I think he's enjoyed the success to a measure, but then it got too much.
Yeah.
I mean, if he he is essentially retired now, and that's good, because I think redefining the industry once is more than enough for a lifetime.
I mean, he's not entirely retired. He still makes games. It's just that anytime... He said this outright. Anytime one of them gets big, he's just gonna sell it and run, because he doesn't want that anymore.
Yeah. I don't blame him.
I mean...
No, after how the Minecraft community has treated him, definitely. Just sell it and run.
Yeah. It's the same thing with... the guy who made Flappy Bird, whose name escapes me right now, but the reason he pulled the game is because of the abuse he was getting about it.
And then he got even more abuse because he pulled the game.
Yeah.
I mean...
The internet is awful.
Yeah, the internet is awful, and social media is awful, and Johnny, if our channel ever explodes, just run.
Just run.
Just to run.
Take the money and run.
If you guys ever make $1 billion, I do expect a cut, because you've said this on my podcast, not on my podcast, on the podcast that I'm appearing on. So
Your podcast, demand, okay.
Yeah, it's my podcast. I guess I'm buying it from you now. I don't know.
I mean, you can have it. We can just rebrand into a new podcast.
No, you can't have it. What are you doing? Stop giving your shit away.
Okay, so that's great. This is my podcast, guys. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to the guy who invented the Frisbee. Or so he told me when we were waiting for the bus together. That's coming up in just a few minutes. But first, we have a brand new song from some guy. Take it away, some guy. Couldn't think of a name.
This is where I start singing, or I would if we wanted to lose all our subscribers immediately.
Oh, you know what? It's the confidence in your singing voice that I think elevates you as an artist.
Oh, don't worry, I don't have any.
Oh, cool. Good. Good to know.
Ah, man. I'm not equipped to deal with Swedes and British people. It's just like Serbians were not equipped to deal with that.
I don't know enough about Serbia to say what you are and are not equipped to deal with.
Ask me anything about Serbia.
What is the national dish of Serbia?
Sarma, which we stole from the Turks, I think, but it's sarma. Actually, the only original dish we have, and this is absolutely, completely depressing, is popara, which is essentially water, salt, and bread, which is our national dish because that's the only thing we could afford when we were retreating during World War I.
Marvelous. That's fascinating.
That's the only thing we actually invented. Everything else we stole from the Turks because the Turks, held us captive for centuries.
Invented, meaning that was the only thing you had left, so you ate it.
yeah, essentially. And people, I hate that dish, but some people still eat it, and it's horrible.
I mean, we eat rotten fish. Well, fermented.
What? You don't use the word fermented like that makes it okay.
No, I don't. The rest of Sweden does.
It's like Welsh. The Welsh national dish is Welsh rabbit, which is basically cheese on toast. Let's not. It's just.
I approve.
It's just grilled cheese. It's grilled cheese.
I approve.
That's like even less impressive than peanut butter and jelly being an American dish.
Well, but that's not the American dish. I would argue that the American dish is probably a cheeseburger.
Likely.
Or pizza made wrong.
That's like the world dish. I don't think anyone makes proper pizza.
The Italians do.
Except Italians, yeah.
My father, back when he worked for Disney, they sent him to a number of Disney offices worldwide because he wrote some software that they had to use for various departments. Anyway, so they sent him to Rome, and he got to try proper Roman, I guess, Italian pizza, and said it's amazing, and there's nothing else. There's nothing like it here. It's entirely unlike American pizza.
Yeah, there's several different Italian styles, and the American styles are nothing like them.
Yeah.
The American styles. There's two styles of American pizza. There's Chicago style pizza, and then there's literally anything else that is bread, cheese, sauce stuff. And of course, there's the ever famous nun pizza with left beef.
What?
I guess you guys aren't familiar with this. It's a meme. You'll have to Google it. Nun pizza with left beef. It's basically someone who ordered a pizza from Domino's, requested no sauce, no cheese, no other toppings except for beef, but they wanted the beef on the left side of the pizza.
Wow. Yeah, our pizza here is kind of fun. The only thing I can't complain about in Serbia is the food. We even have our own version of hamburgers.
You just literally complained about the food in Serbia 3 minutes ago.
I complained about the national dish. Everything else we stole, we made better.
You stole all the best food and was like, this is ours now.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fair.
We literally have hamburgers, which aren't hamburgers. They are made in a different type of bun, and the meat is laid out differently, and we call it differently, and we say it's ours. It's not hamburgers.
It's not a hamburger. It's a flamburger.
Essentially, yes, that.
It's made with real things.
Yep.
Don't ask any more questions. Just eat it. You will eat it.
Well, that is another thing. If you do not accept food here in Serbia, you have deathly insulted your host.
Yeah, I would never survive very long in Serbia because I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat your salty bread water. I'm going to politely decline.
I I have never seen the salty bread water ever offered to a foreigner. I don't think we're that cruel.
it's like, yeah, we had to live on this. We don't need to inflict that. We know better. We know better.
We do give it to kids in kindergarten, so...
Why? That's like cruel! Why would you do that?
I don't know.
I had Oliver Twist.
I don't know. I had to go through that, but one of the meals on rotation was that, and I still do not understand why that was.
It's like, Americans, I don't think it happens so much now, but like a meal here is like liver and onions. Liver and onions. It smells awful. Why would anyone eat either of those things in that combination? And yet, here it is on the children's menu at Burger King. I'm exaggerating, not Burger King, but still. Yeah. Why does this exist? What's wrong with you? Doug was right. Liver and onions is disgusting.
Like, in university cafeterias, like, there are 3 meals on weekdays, but on the weekends, instead of dinner, you get this kind of, like, food package that you bring home. And one of the possible packages, and I'm not making this up, is... a quarter of a loaf of bread, a can of tuna, and 2 little packs of juice. And that's like, how am I supposed to eat this? Well, you take the tuna and you put it on the bread. Like, that's not a meal.
We eat that sort of shit here. I don't, but we as a people do.
That's not a meal. I
agree.
That's like the oil alone would kill you.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah,
so many Swedish food is like the weirdest shit. We do have like some of it I like. I like blood pudding. It's a pudding with blood.
Yes, I know what it is. We have that too.
It's great.
Every civilized nation has blood pudding in some capacity, except for America. They have gumbo instead.
Do you just call America a civilized nation?
Sometimes, if I want to avoid being shot, I will refer to them as a civilized nation.
Okay, so we understand. You are being taken hostage and cannot speak the truth.
I've been held hostage by Americans. And you may think this is actually a basement. This whole wall is painted to look like an external wall, but I am... and I just realised I'm describing a room that your listeners can't see. Good job, me. Way to podcast. Yeah, this is grim. I'm trapped against my will.
Look, when you get back to Europe, you can talk all the shit you want about the US.
Absolutely. And no one will shoot me unless I'm in some parts of London.
Well, you know, that'll happen, like, either way.
Aren't you more likely to get stabbed in London anyway?
You are statistically more likely to be stabbed in London than you are to be shot in Los Angeles. That is a true fact that I just made up myself.
That is terrifying.
That's actually, I made it up. Just made that up.
Okay.
I have no idea if that's true.
That's a terrifying idea, though.
Like, the chances of you getting hurt here in Serbia if you're a foreigner are essentially 0, because I've already spoken about this in the podcast, but if you're not Serbian and you're just visiting, people will adore you. They'll be like, you have to see how great we are.
Why are you here? I don't care. Please enjoy. Here is all of the things Serbia has to offer. Enjoy it, please. For the love of God, tell other people so that we become a hot tourist destination. I don't imagine a lot of people going to Serbia. I don't think of it as the place to be.
You're pretty much correct. The only time people come here is for New Year's celebration because our booze is extremely, extremely cheap.
That's great.
Yeah, especially because like our living standards are much lower than in Western Europe. So, like, even if you have like moderate pay in Western Europe, you can live like a king here.
So the question I've got: how close are you guys to Croatia? Probably not very.
No, we're right next to Croatia.
I thought so. For some reason, my brain was like, I think they're next to each other, but they might not be.
Yeah, we were at war in the 90s. We're pretty close.
Cool. That's
best friends forever.
BFFs.
It's so stupid because like every war it's stupid, but the younger generations essentially don't give a shit. I have Croatian friends, and you know, in general, people don't give a shit. But the older generations, they give a lot of shit. So yeah, it's like it's kind of safe. It's kind of not safe to go to Croatia.
Depends on how old the people living there are.
Yeah, but
so what you're saying is all of the old people in both countries should just be rounded up.
Reverse Battle Royale.
Yes. Yes.
It's the Hunger Games, but with old people. People who are 1,000 years old and hate each other. Good, have at it. Kill yourselves.
I mean, like, the country would be a better place, especially because, like, all the older people have too much voting rights. Yeah, we're getting political now.
Yeah.
Very local politics that nobody else understands as well.
Clearly, you've brought on a guest who is well versed in Serbian politics. For example, I know that the name of your prime minister is... I'm leaving that space blank so I can find out the name later and you can just drop it in the edit. Who is a very good, very bad prime minister. See, again, you can edit around. The people hate him and his really good, awful policies. There you go. I'm just giving you options. I'm giving you options for the edit.
Okay, so you basically want more Serbian fans, or do you want less Serbian fans? So we know how to edit it.
I am just happy to be talking to people, because what else? You know what I'd be doing right now? I'd be playing Star Trek Online, to be honest. That's what I'd be doing with my time right now. I play Star Trek Online. It's fine. It's good. I'm not ashamed of it.
I played Champions Online from the same company for like 4 years, so yeah, I won't judge you, even though my game is worse off.
You have more hours put into Champions Online than than my friends list has put into games in the same period.
Wow.
Yeah, sure, like, embarrass me in front of our guests. Why don't you quote the number of hours I have?
Go on, let's hear it.
I think it's like 3,300 in 4 years.
I see, and I thought my 500 some hours on Star Trek Online was impressive, but no, you've outdone it. Good job.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Like, I had to stop playing it because I kept constantly getting Twitter mentions from friends saying, "Oh wow, look at how many hours he has of this." And I'm like, shut the fuck up already.
Don't let people embarrass you. You should own that. Own that number. That's your number. That is you spending time doing something that you love doing. And don't let anyone on this planet bring you down because you have chosen to play a game that you enjoy.
Okay, I need to install it again.
So you install it. I'll play it with you. Like,
guaranteed. Well, we can actually, we can actually chat because they have this very good thing, which is their chat server connects all 3 games they own, which is something I really enjoyed. They had like a lot of good ideas with some rough executions in general.
That's cryptic for you.
Yeah. Man,
are you drinking out of a Christmas mug, Johnny?
Yes.
Yes, he's drinking. In case you probably haven't seen this mug, gentle listener, but it's a mug. It's got a snowman with a bunch of like Christmas stuff on its, I guess, belly, whatever you call that, and it's wearing a scarf and a hat, and it's very happy to be here. But
it's also sepia toned as well.
It's kind of.
I'll take a picture of it.
It's an old Christmas mug.
That's
the snow is yellow.
The snow is yellow. You are correct.
I'm sure it never used to be. How long have you had that mug?
I mean, this is probably 10 years old.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
It used to be my mother's, and I got some of them when I moved out.
I actually have a mug that's 14 years old, and I still use it.
I don't have any of my mugs from England. And I don't know where most of my mugs from America are, actually. They went somewhere. They went away. I got a Beatles mug, actually, that a friend of mine gave me as a Christmas present this year.
I can imagine just, like, carrying mugs to the US being a nightmare.
I bought my entire DVD and most of my video game collection, but I left most of my vintage consoles behind because I was pretty confident I wouldn't be able to use them over here because of the voltage and the different television standards and all that fun stuff. Yeah, so I had to rebuy. I had to rebuy a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Jet. All of that stuff I had to repurchase. But yeah.
Well, actually, you weren't able to rebuy a Mega Drive because they have a Genesis here.
Yeah, they called it the Genesis in the US. So I don't have a Mega Drive, but I do have a Genesis and a Sega CD. Man. And one of the best Sega CD games ever made, Flink. Flink is an amazing game. It's one of my favorite 2D platformers of all time.
I've never heard of this.
You need to get this game. It was developed by Psygnosis. The guys who worked on it went on to... They did a PlayStation 1 platformer called The Adventures of Lomax, which is a Lemmings spin-off. But the game is called Flink, and it is incredible. It's one of my all-time favorite platform games, bar none.
Psygnosis made so much cool shit in that era.
And now they're gone.
Yeah. It kind of has that same... It's like a slightly darker Rayman. It's that same kind of feel of platform game.
Right. I'm still waiting for what Sony intends to do with Shadow of the Beast, because they just teased it and then buried it.
I didn't know that they'd done... No, I remember now. I remember them when they did that, and I still don't care. I never liked Shadow of the Beast.
Yeah, actually the only retro console I had was a Master System. It was like 3 games for 10 years until I got a PC. So that was fun.
Yeah, I mostly grew up with the Amiga. I didn't have a PC until, I want to say 97, 98. And even then I was still kind of hesitant to use it because I still liked my Amiga, and I still had a lot of games for my Amiga. I was still playing games on my Amiga well into 2001 when it unfortunately passed away. Rough times.
See, I could have had an Amiga, but my brother messed up the entire arrangement. Because my mother, we weren't well off, but she had some money at that point. She asked my brother, "Hey, do you want me to buy you a computer?" Which in those days meant an Amiga or a Commodore, but mostly an Amiga.
Yeah.
And my brother said no, and instead he asked for 10 imported G.I. Joe figures.
Why?
Because he was fucking stupid.
That's the dumbest. You can't play Lemmings on a G.I. Joe figure.
And that's not the worst. That's not the worst part. So those were imported. Like, we had an American, all an American shop, and all the figures. He took off the headphones.
I can't hear this. I can't listen to this anymore. This is painful.
You have to listen till the end of the tragedy. Look, there was this American shop, so that all the figures were overpriced because they were American imports. But to top it all off, he lost all those figures because he had this fascination of dismantling them and exchanging their pants and torsos.
Okay. Because they're only held together by the elastic bands.
Yeah, and in that process, he lost all the figure parts. And the only figure he didn't do it for was Snake Eyes, and he had Snake Eyes stolen by some random kid. So we could have had an Amiga, and we got zilch because of it.
Well, next time you see your brother, just punch him in the stomach and tell him that I did it. The Portscenter guy did it. It was my special request.
I can't. He's a football fan.
He will kill you.
Yes.
He will cut you open.
Yes.
Does your brother listen to this podcast? Does he know where this podcast exists?
Even if he listens, we're in different cities now, so I don't give a shit. I hope he doesn't listen. But yeah, that's my tragic story. The actual first console I owned after a Master System was a PlayStation 3 I bought 2 years ago.
Wow.
It was 2 years ago.
Because the Master System was always much, much bigger in Europe than it was in Japan or America.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is a lot of people think of Sega as a Japanese company, but they're not. They are, in fact, American in origin.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. What was Sega short for? They had something They made,
Stupid Europeans get anal. What? No.
No. Service games, because they made arcade cabinets and stuff like that.
Yeah. Service, entertainment, gaming, I don't know, I'm making it up there.
No.
I'm pressing my sonic screwdriver. I'm British, I have to like Doctor Who, it's in our constitution.
Yeah, I refuse to like Doctor Who because I'll look like a bandwagoner if I do.
I'm Swedish, so I'm close enough to Britain that I am allowed to like Doctor Who. But I only do it during certain periods of time.
Like what you like because you want to do it. If you do something for other people, be it watching a thing or not watching another thing, then you're not doing it to serve yourself. If you want to watch Doctor Who, by all means, check it out. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but you won't know until you give it a try. If you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to watch it. But the important thing is, don't let other people dictate how you spend your free time. Be it watching Doctor Who or playing Champions Online. Like, legitimately, be true to yourself, because if you do anything other than that, you are not living your life to its fullest potential. Living life to its full potential isn't about climbing Mount Everest and writing great plays and, punching a wildebeest in the stomach. It's about being the truest version of yourself that you can be without actively hurting other people. That's my personal philosophy. So do what makes you happy. And if people go, oh, he's playing Champions too much, oh, he's watching Doctor Who because everyone else is watching it, then pardon my language, but fudge them.
I actually completely agree with you. And on a serious note, I actually don't care what other people think. I think that's actually one of the most hurtful comments, I think, regarding any hobby I've done was about this YouTube channel. Because one person was all, why are you doing this? You have a job. Why are you wasting your time doing YouTube videos? And that was just like, fuck off. It's fun.
It's your free time. Why does he care? But here's the thing. Sorry, John. I didn't mean to talk over you, but I am going to keep talking. One of the things that really bugs me, it doesn't really bug me, but like when people leave angry comments on a video, or they leave troll comments like, oh, this is a stupid show and you're dumb. Like, that comes... If people don't care about something, they just won't comment. They won't say anything, they won't do anything, they'll just go, oh, I don't like that, and then they'll watch a different video, or they'll go onto a different website, or they'll do something else. They'll play a video game, or masturbate, or whatever it is that people do in their free time. If someone has an emotional reaction, or a visceral reaction to the content they're watching, that's when they leave a comment. So the thing that I try to remember is if someone leaves a comment on one of my videos, it's because it's connected with them in some way. Whether that's positive or negative, something I've done has had an emotional impact on that person. If they disagree with the content in some way, if they don't like it and they still feel the need to comment, that's on them. And even the people who are leaving comments like, haha, you're dumb and gay, lol, it's like, you still took time out of your day to write that comment, so clearly something that I've done has left a mark on you. And in many ways, I feel very privileged to be able to say that I'm producing content that people want to comment on, whether it's positively or negatively.
Yeah,
that's the end.
I'd rather have negative comments than no comments, I guess, but I'd rather have positive comments than negative comments as well.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. But I understand where the negativity, particularly stuff like, oh, you left out this, or this episode wasn't very good, like, that's because they have an emotional connection to the work that you're doing, and they expect better, It's not necessarily that you're terrible, it's that they have an idea in their head of the kind of standards and expectations that you have set, and when you don't meet those, they're disappointed. That's where that comes from. So I try to take that out. Again, I make the show for me, but I always take care to, listen to what people are saying. If they're just trolling, if they're not being constructive in their criticism, then I'm not really, gonna let that one sit in my head for too long. But if someone says, you didn't mention this, it would have helped if you mentioned that, I think, how could I have worked that in and made it work? And if, in future I think, well, okay, yeah, I could have incorporated that. I try to take that forward and use that to improve the show that I'm making.
Yeah, I'm very open for criticism as well. I'm a critic. I say that as that's not my job, but that's what I do on the internet. That's been what I've been doing for years. So if I can't at least accept criticism, then I feel like I'm doing a bad job.
Can you hear that?
Nope.
Sirens. I live near a fire station.
Sounds fantastic.
As do I.
I live near a fire station. One of the firemen is a Scottish fellow who plays bagpipes at 3 o'clock in the morning.
What?
You just made it up, didn't you?
No, that's true. That is a 100% true fact.
Wow.
I wish it weren't. I wish I would make it. I wish I go, gotcha. But no, that is a genuine thing that I have to live with my whole life.
You can never move. It's impossible.
Matt, do you know how big of a hassle moving is?
I do know how big of a hassle moving is.
I want to move a maximum number of 5 times until the end of my life. Because that's that big of a hassle.
In my whole life, I've moved once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, 11 times, 12 times, 13. I think I'm on my 14th now, and I'm probably going to move again later this year.
Wow. Sounds good.
I'm glad we're having this conversation. But you also have to remember that there's immigration in there as well. Like, I moved from the UK to the US, and I brought, 2 suitcases full of clothes and DVDs with me. I brought my Doctor Who DVD collection. That's how serious I am about Doctor Who.
That's awesome.
Was it region locked?
It's region 2, but I have a region 3 DVD player.
Ah, okay.
Plus, the VLC player on the PC and the Mac doesn't take the region of the DVD-ROM drive into consideration when it plays the media.
Yeah, I forgot that was a thing, bypassing via PC.
I think I moved like 7 times total, and they've all been within the same city.
This is, and the guys, you can't see this on the podcast, so you probably want to edit around this bit. This is the Doctor Who TV movie from 1996, signed by Eric Roberts, who played the Master.
Wow.
Boom.
I've never seen the movie.
I like it, and I actually have 2 copies of it. Woo! 2 different releases, because one of these is the special edition, and one of them is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't really get their physical DVDs anymore. I don't have the room for it. I'm flooding in stuff as it is in my tiny apartment.
See, I do buy DVDs and I buy Blu-rays because I have no self-control.
That's a good reason.
I'm trying to find something interesting I have to show, even though listeners can't see it. Let's try this. I have this figure I got of a dwarf riding a battle bear.
Nice.
That I got for my birthday.
That's something.
Welcome to the Score Attack Show and Tell Show, which is mostly the Tell Show because we can't show you.
Well, I don't have DVDs. Everything I buy now is digital, and plus buying physical DVDs, either customs will murder me or the stores here are bloody overpriced.
Yeah. See, I don't have that problem. If I order stuff from the UK, from Amazon UK, I'm usually fine.
Man, you do not want to know the hassle I went through to get a mic, a proper mic, and to get a capture card for this channel. It was a fucking nightmare. Because if I order directly, I need to pay $100 postage fees, and then I need to pay Serbian customs. And Serbian customs opens every package they get, and how they kind of decide on the fee is, so this is $100 worth package and $100 postage fees, so let's calculate it as €200.
It almost sounds like your country doesn't quite make sense.
You think?
It's almost like that's been the theme of this podcast so far.
It has been.
Serbia is kind of a nonsense country.
It really is. I'm using this podcast in hopes that this channel will make it be big and the rest of the world can find out what Serbia is really like.
You should just do a Serbia podcast.
I can't because I'll get a bunch of people from Croatia and Bosnia shitting on us.
Yeah, but you're going to shit on you, so why do you care if Croatia and Bosnia join in on the fun?
That's also true. Everybody can shit on us. This is a shit attack podcast.
Okay, I think we reached a new low in everything.
No, the collusion episode was still lower than this.
If it's any consolation, Britain is a hot mess right now. I wouldn't move back. I wouldn't do it.
I've been I follow a lot of British people on Twitter, and I've been just getting tweets of a chaotic mess on all fronts. Politics I don't understand, and TV shows I don't care about.
Your politics are obviously approaching American levels, from what I gather.
British politics are an absolute shambles. It's ridiculous. David Cameron, who's the current Prime Minister, is worse than Margaret Thatcher was. I mean, he's far more interested in privatization and eliminating social plans. He wants to privatize the NHS, which is our healthcare system. It's the thing that
he's plainly a villain. I can say that with confidence, just hearing his comments about the Transatlantic Partnership Agreement, just completely lying about what it contains. And I've been following that shit since they started with the Trans-Pacific version, years ago. And seeing it come to the US and seeing come to the EU and seeing European politicians talking about it is just terrifying. Because they're all just lying about it.
it's depressing. It's genuinely depressing, and I'm not gonna. There's that sound again. I'm not gonna lie. The state of British politics is one of the reasons why I decided to leave. You know, I can't get behind it, and I can't get behind the mentality in the UK as well. Is very negative. It's very defeatist. When I told people in the UK I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, their philosophy has been, well, okay, but don't make that your day job. Like, get a regular job, get a house, get a mortgage.
That sounds like Sweden.
You know, it's very what Stephen Fry described as a miserablism. This permeated miserableness that runs through the core of the country, like words on a stick of Brighton rock, you know? And then you come to America, and I acknowledge that this is not the experience that everyone who immigrates from another country to the US is going to have, and I have the advantage of being British, and Americans love British people. But, you know, people hear that I want to do stand-up, they hear that I want to be an actor, they hear about the YouTube show, they hear about Portscenter, and, you know, the Jump Leads audio play podcast that I'm doing, and all this other stuff. They're like, good, man, good luck to you. You know, you can do it. I believe in you. You know, there's an optimism. Even if it is the fake and false optimism of people who live in Los Angeles, people who work in Hollywood, that's still better to me than the genuine pessimism that is just absolutely inherent in the UK. It's just, I don't think I would move back. I don't think I would.
Yeah, the entirety of Northern Europe seems to be a lot like that. We have this social law, not really a law, but like commonly cited social law called the law of Jante, which is just cites basically, you do not think you are special, do not think you are better than anyone else, do not think that you will ever accomplish anything of worth, and so on and so on and so on so on. It's like just miserable fucking garbage, and people who are themselves miserable and filled with anxiety and just nervousness about the future will cite that at other people, like, as a way to keeping them down to the same level.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is a leaf blower. Can you hear that?
We can hear this.
Yeah,
that's great. Guest appearance from the guy who does the leaf blowing on Monday afternoons, who usually comes a little later than this.
But he heard we were having a podcast, so he decided to be like here a bit earlier. Well, like I can completely relate on the sentiment of like wanting to leave a place because of the political situation. Because if it wasn't apparent, I didn't really like it here, where I am right now.
I get that vibe.
But I do agree that being surrounded by optimistic people, even if it is that fake optimism, is much more like pleasant and easier to work with than, you know, realistic pessimism or whatever. Like I know, like in some jobs I worked, you know, being surrounded by colleagues that are like negative, oh, this isn't gonna work, this isn't working properly, this is never gonna happen, and stuff like that. Okay, maybe you're right, but it's not, you know, helping anyone do a better job right now.
Yeah, surround yourself with people who want you to succeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Whatever you're doing. Like, you can't surround yourself with people who don't give a shit, who want you to give up. That's just impossible.
It also makes it difficult to kind of do what you do with a positive attitude, because if you're trying to stay positive and then the people around you, their attitude is, maybe that's not wise, then it's difficult to kind of maintain that high energy. I don't think I would have made Portscenter if I'd stayed in the UK. I don't think it would have happened. I think that aside from circumstantial stuff, if the same circumstances had arisen in the UK, then spending the time and the energy and the money that I've spent making the show, I think that people would have been like, yeah, but couldn't you have put that money towards a car payment? Couldn't you have put that money towards home improvement? Couldn't you have put that money towards your education? And it's like,
Could you have put that money towards something you didn't care about?
Exactly, you know? It's like, I dropped out of college because it wasn't for me. You know, I moved away from England because that country is so thoroughly negative. There's a lot of cultural stuff that I really like about the UK. I love the British television. I love British music. I love British film. The stand-up comedy in England is, I genuinely believe, is some of the best in the world. And I acknowledge that a lot of that does come from a very it comes from living in that environment, that kind of negative, miserable, overcast, gloomy, 300 days of rainfall a year kind of society. And yeah, I can't. It's not for me.
Yeah, I can completely get behind that.
Yeah, like, I want to move out of here as well. I don't know where, but I want to get out of here.
Well, look, obviously, Johnny, the plan is that we move together in the US and make a Giant Bomb ripoff.
Sounds good.
Yes. No, we should move to Canada and be the Canadian, European Giant Bomb.
Like, that would be such a mishmash of everything, it might actually work.
Good work. You could do it.
We should move to Vancouver. That sounds like a nice city that none of us could ever afford to live in because it's ridiculous.
We'll get there. Like, just a bunch of hard work and saying our mind to it. That's kind of the mentality of this, like, entire channel.
None of this is ever possible. Let's do it.
Yeah. This is a horrible idea. Like, our first video series was like, okay, which game will we do? Let's start doing games. Let's do Dark Souls. That's the worst idea ever. Let's do it.
That was over-ambitious as fuck, and we failed like 3/4 through. Everything failed.
It's
Everything
like those guys who did the Grown Ups 2 podcast, where they watched Grown Ups 2 every week for a year.
The worst idea of all time podcast.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Wow.
That's commitment to a project.
Yeah. Anyway, I think like we can slowly wrap this up since we're stuck on a positive note of believe in yourself.
Yeah, believe in yourself
and do stupid shit.
Do stupid shit. Do what makes you. My firm belief is everyone has a right to be happy as long as their happiness does not impinge upon the happiness of others. As long as you're not actively hurting other people, you have a right to be happy, and you should pursue that. As long as you don't derive happiness from, like, making people miserable or, like, killing people in dark alleyways, then do what makes you feel happy. Play Champions online. Watch that dumb television show from the 60s, you know? Masturbate 3 to 5 times a day. Do what makes you happy, and as long as you're not hurting anyone else, it doesn't matter. I do all of those things. No, that's...
You play Champions online? Wow, I don't know.
Watch Attack on Titan if you want to. I mean, I'll probably recommend something else instead, but if you really want to, that's go ahead.
You know, I'm not a big anime person. I can think of better anime than Attack on Titan, but if you enjoy that show, don't let other people go, oh, that's a baby anime. Like, screw you. Screw them. You enjoy it, so don't let them take away from that.
Yeah. Oh, man, like, thanks for being here. This was quite the experience, and we managed to defeat.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
we managed to defeat the evil time zone that kept stopping us.
Yeah, we've been trying for like 2-3 weeks now to get this done.
Like we like talked about it in February, so about a month. But that was well worth it, I think.
Yeah, good times.
Okay, thank you all for listening. See you all next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.